Welcome to the Power Monkey Podcast, where we chat with the best in the world about what they do. I'm your host, Dave Durante, with my co-host, Chad Vaughn, and on today's episode, we have the big man himself, Mr. Ron Ortiz. We've missed Ron at our Power Monkey Camp for the last few camps, but he is officially known as the mayor of Power Monkey Camp, having been to over 10. He's a big part of what we do, and most people probably know him more from his accolades in the CrossFit world, having been at the games for over a decade in the Masters division, having won the division twice, and most recently finishing second place at the 2021 CrossFit Games in the Masters division. The guy's an absolute beast and a sweetheart. Hope you guys enjoy this one. He's one of the best guys there is in the community, and we hope you guys agree. Mr. Ron Ortiz, the official mayor of Power Monkey Camp, the superhero in real life that we have come to know and love. How are you, buddy? We miss you.
I'm good. I definitely miss you guys tremendously.
It's been way too long.
Crazy busy. I mean, like you guys as well. It's just life is it's amazing how quick life produces all different kinds of things that go on, and you got to kind of keep up with them and keep moving along. So yeah.
What's been taking up your time most of it? So everybody probably knows you from your physical feats and what you're capable of doing in the superhuman world of being a games athlete, but what do you do in your daily life, and let people know kind of what your job is?
So I'm a full-time firefighter in Broward County. I've been there for approximately 23 years now.
Wow.
So I've been really fortunate. I love my job. I love what I do. That's, honestly, it's like, it held me together through a lot of even like the tough times I went through not too long ago. It's like, you have a brotherhood of people around you that as, I guess you could look at them as like a family that is, really a big problem family, because half the time there's a lot of stuff that happens and you're like, man, these guys are really screwed up, but they're also there for you when you need them in the worst times. And I mean, without jumping around too much to the elephant in the room, about 3 years ago I got divorced, and I had a group of people around me at that point that really, especially from work, helped me sort through life at that point. And it was difficult because it wasn't an easy decision, but it was something I had to do for my own happiness and my own peace of mind. It's nothing, and I'm just basically the way I'm built. I'm not a quitter. It's not something that I looked at and went, okay, I'm done. It's just something, and after a while you go, okay, I've tried everything I can, and I've turned to the big man up in the sky, and at a certain point you go, okay, so not much else can be done to fix the situation, and if the other person's as miserable as I am, we should probably go ahead and think about not continuing this circumstance. And the epiphany for me was, there's a couple things that happened at work, and then very close friends that I had, and we went on a call, and this old guy walking down the street, and he was, exhausted. We talked to his son on the phone. We put him in the back of the truck, and he's like, I just don't want to live anymore. And I was like, sir, why are you saying that? You're healthy. He goes, my wife died 2 weeks ago, and I can't live without her. And when you hear somebody say that to the point where they're really wanting to not be here in this world anymore, and then you look at your own life and go, wow, I don't think I really feel like that, and that's a thought that like really hits home. And I sat there and I listened to the gentleman. I'm sitting there tearing up, and my boss is looking at me like, what is wrong with you? But it's like the internal, gears are going, and you're going, wow, this really fits in tight to where I'm at in my life. And as I got talking to a couple of my friends, one of them sat me down, and he just looked at me, he goes, Ron, he goes, I went through the same thing. And he said, at a certain point, every year goes by and you think things will get better. And before you know it, 10 more years of your life has gone by and things aren't better. Mm-hmm. So at that point, you need to make a decision. Are you willing to go through the rest of your life like that? Or are you willing to now make a hard decision, make a change? And that's what kind of occurred. And it was a blessing. And honestly, it was a true blessing. Everything happened the way it did. I have an amazing woman that I've met after that. And, God's kind of got plans for us. And those plans sometimes don't really fit into the way we think they should. We have sorry, I just spilled a bunch of water. I just spilled a bunch of water all over my new wife's papers, and she's gonna be really happy about this. So I might be. A full turn. I got remarried this last year. Super happy. She's an amazing young lady, and we're just trying to get things going. And that's been the delay in me getting back to camp and doing those things, but we're trying to make it work so that it's. She has a real job, and I think that's a big thing. I want her to be involved in it, but being the fact that she has a real job, it's very difficult for somebody who has a job outside of firefighting or just a CrossFit athlete to coordinate those times and do what we do. So, but I miss you. She knows all about you guys. You guys are constant talks. I think you met her at Wadapalooza.
Yep, we did
2 years ago. So I'm extremely excited for her to become a bigger part of the family too, and do stuff. But anyways, long story, a little bit shorter. Firefighter for 23 years. I compete as a CrossFit athlete. I've been really fortunate to be connected with some amazing people like yourselves and the Chris Hinshaws and the Rich Fronings and the Matt, Matt and Tia and all these other people that I've gotten to meet along the way. But ultimately, it's like I love the community. And I think you know that more than anybody, is that the people that surround that community, whether they be the high-end athletes or the people that just want information or want to learn, that's what I really love.
Yeah,
I really do. I mean, it's just like, it's so awesome. So.
Well, first off, Ron, thanks for sharing that, the little personal piece of what your life has been like over the last few years. I know it wasn't easy, and you mentioned the support of the crew at the firehouse. You've been with them for 23 years. I'm sure they are very much like brothers, the ups and downs that you have with a family. And you mentioned community and, the CrossFit community and what we have at camp and the people that you've met. I'm sure it's very similar to what you have with the firehouse, and to be able to have that type of community, both within fitness and then within your job, I'm sure those are things you kind of lean on when you have those times in life that don't go according to plan, right? And you seem to have two extremely strong groups of people that you can lean on to help you get through those times.
Super fortunate that I do. Yeah, and it's funny because the people that are closest to me are like, again, they're like especially you all, but my coaches. My coaches are like Duke, Chris, Jay, are the three people that, like, on a daily basis I speak to. Mm-hmm. I really do. They're it's very difficult for me to introduce them, because I introduce them and the first thing I say, this is my really good friend Jay, this is my really good friend Chris, this is my really good friend Duke, but they're also my coach. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if a lot of people understand that dynamic, because sometimes a coach is a coach, but these guys are like my brothers. Mm-hmm. They're people that have stood behind me like through thick and thin, and they are continuously there, and they call me like, Jay, I get a phone call from Jay every day. Mm-hmm. Hey, how's it going? And it's not just on the coaching end, it's how are you doing? Mentally, how are you doing? Same thing with Chris and same thing with Duke. We're always talking. Well, I got to get a hold of Duke before he gets either out of the water or in the water surfing. So it's kind of hard.
So for the listeners out there, that's Chris Hinshaw, Jason Leiden, and Duke Van Fleet, who are all Power Monkey coaches, yes. Who are all part of our community. And, Ron, you haven't been to the last few camps, but you are still one of our most important pieces to what we do at camp. So whenever you have a successful moment, whenever you're in the media, whenever we always take pride in the fact that we love seeing you out there and doing such great things in the community, but we love hearing that the Power Monkey coaches play such a big role in continuing to have success within the CrossFit world.
You all do. I mean, I for matter of fact, just a real quick, I was just in my wife and I just got back from Philly, and I had to do some of the Wodapalooza qualifiers.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle of our vacation, here we are taking the time to do Wodapalooza qualifier. I'm talking to him, and there's a gentleman that's really working on his bar muscle ups, and he's doing the chicken wing, and I'm like, and I look at the lady, and she goes, no, he can use all the. We're just learning how to do this too. And I started talking to him, and then after I got done speaking with him and trying to help him, I sat down with the coach and I said, okay, have you guys ever heard about paramonkey? And they're like, no. Well, I think we have. And I was like, okay, you have to go. And she actually said, she goes, it's ironic you're saying that because every year they try to set a certain amount of money aside for coaching for their coaches. I go, you have to go.
Yeah.
You have to go. And this is the way I approach it every time. I'm like, you have to go. If you don't go, you're doing yourself and your community a disservice. You're going to, and they were like, well, what do you do? And I started telling them, and they're like, oh my gosh, like Chad Vaughn, Dave Durante. I go, yes, you have like 4 hours of these people, like in a group of maybe 10 people.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have private time you can take with them outside of that.
Well, that's part of being the mayor of camp. It's part of the duties of being mayor of Paramonkey Camp. But I'm still shocked. I mean, what are we doing wrong, Chad? How is it possible that more people don't know that Paramonkey exists? We're coming up on almost 10 years of doing this,
Isn't that crazy?
and have had thousands of people come through, and we're still missing the mark on how to get people to be aware this is going on.
But there's always going to be those stacks of people in there that they haven't heard for some reason. And I'm telling you, it usually has to do that we weren't there. We were never there at some point.
Right.
So, and they have a community of, she said they have, I think 600.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
That they coach. They have 2 separate gyms. So it's pretty nice.
I love it. Chad, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, it's kind of frustrating and confusing, but on the other hand, it's exciting as well, because it's like, man, there's still a whole lot of people that have, either only heard a little mention of it, but aren't sure what it is, or haven't heard of it at all. So we're very lucky to have someone like Ron on our side there, out there preaching it all the time. But I got to tell you, Ron, just sitting in here listening to you talk through the first part of this recording, I think it's been years since I've talked to you, but it just seems like yesterday, and, like Dave said, I mean, there's multiple mentions of you at every single camp that you're not there. And camp has been incredible. It's gotten better every time from my perspective, but it's certainly not the same without you. So I hope that you can make it back as soon as possible, for sure. But I wonder, you're talking about your coaches and the great relationship that you have with them and doing the qualifiers and stuff like that. What is on the horizon for you competition wise, near future within this next year, and then kind of ongoing? And then also, where did you even meet these coaches at?
Yeah. So again, I was super fortunate to have met them at Paramonkey. Every single one of them. And during the time I was there, I was with a different coach that was like a single mainline coach. And he was a coach for quite a few other athletes. I'm not going to use any names, but to the likes of China and Brooke Wells and Neil Maddox and quite a few other people. And I felt like I was getting the best I possibly could. And at one point there was a little bit of a breakdown. And I remember talking to one of the athletes, and they were very upset because they're like, they had just taken on, this coach had taken on somebody else. And I was like, well, what's the problem? She's like, yeah, but we all get the same programming. I was like, but the only thing that matters is how you approach the programming. It's what you put in the program that makes the difference in how you are going to perform. It makes zero difference as to whether this other athlete is getting the same programming as you, if you're approaching it as hard as you could possibly go. But during that time, and it was that year basically coming into the games, my body started to break down, like severely. I started having like a lot of issues. And at the time, my friends around me were like, bro, you got to ease up, because I'm like, yeah, but I'm doing the programming.
What year was this around, Ron? That
was around 16.
Okay.
And I had like literally gotten to the point where my body was breaking down, to the point where it was like, he was using more of like a Bulgarian workout method, where it's like beat you up until like 4 weeks out. It's like, now you're prepared for everything, so it doesn't matter what they give you, you'll be ready. And I was like, yeah, but I'm like coming in with like splints and bandages, and it was good, because it taught me a lot though too.
What they call that weeding people out there, Ron. Survival of the fittest is what that is.
Survival of the fittest. If you get there and you can make it through. But so in 16 I won. I did pretty well. So it was actually, but around midway through there, I started actually doing a lot of programming with Jay. And Duke was always doing my gymnastics. So it was one of those things I had to kick back and go, okay, so is this really beneficial for me? And I started using Jay then completely. And I worked with Chris periodically. And going into 16, I really started to work with him a lot more because being a bigger guy, sorry, I'm trying to soak this up as we're talking, and it's
still cleaning up the water. I like it.
It's funny because it's dripping down at me slowly, and I'm waiting for it to hit the floor and get in trouble. But so I was working with Chris, and I started to notice a huge difference. And then he started having these camps that he was doing at Mayhem, and I loved everything about the programming with him. And then I started working with Jay, and then together they all it's such a great group because Jay kind of works and does the main part of the programming, and he includes gymnastics, and Duke goes in and kind of adjusts it because he knows where I'm at. And then Chris, he'll give me my morning or AM session. I can just plug those things into where I need to go, and it works so well. It really does. It's been really, really good. The last little bit has been amazing, just coming into this year and stuff. This year was tough at the games. I just, I think all three of them get frustrated with me because of the fact that sometimes I throw caution into the wind and I'm like, I got this. And
that's what I've heard. I've heard each of them say, we have a strategy. We talk about what we're going to do when we get out there. And as soon as 3, 2, 1 goes, all the strategy goes out the window. And Ron just gets after it.
It's so funny
to the plan.
So Jess, my wife, is she's worked into the whole trio. Now it's 4 people, and they just go, Jess, this is what we want him to do. Can you control him? And she does really, really well. But it's just I joke around a lot of times because it's I still remember a couple of times. There was one year at the gym at the games we had to do a shoulders overhead, and we had this all planned out and it's done. And I got underneath the bar. I was like, man, I feel really good. And I started slapping weights on. Next thing I know, I look at Duke and he's doing these hand signals like this. And Jay's just like this, and he goes, we were talking, and Jay's just like, what in the F is he doing?
Well, I mean, at some point it's successful, right? You've had 2 first place finishes at the games. You've had a 3rd, and this most recent, you had a 2nd place finish. So congratulations on getting back to 2nd.
Yes, thank you.
You said that it didn't go as great as you were hoping for. What do you think was the missing link? What were you proud of going into it and coming out at 2nd? But what do you think kind of prevented you from getting back at the top of the podium?
Me, my mistake. So the first day we had to run. Chris and I sat and talked about the run in detail. This is what we need to do. Jess, my wife, was a runner in college, so she's like, hey, this is what I want you to do. And we had this whole plan. Well, part of the plan entailed me going out kind of hard and then kind of staying with somebody that I thought I could keep up with. Well, I decided to keep up with the guy that was running in first place, and it didn't go well. I think I saw Jesus. I almost died.
What was the run? What was the distance?
It was a 5K.
Okay.
Yeah, I went out really hot. I mean, I think I went on the first, I was running at my max mile run for the first 2K. Mm-hmm. And going into 3rd, 4th, and 5th lap, I just fell off. And then at one point I was not even walking anymore, barely. I was almost falling over. So it was pretty pathetic. And that cost me a lot. And if I would have just stayed with the plan that Chris had set for me in the fact of just cruising along at my 8.5 minute pace, I probably would have come in 5th rather than 17th.
Right.
That cost me a lot. And then the other workout that killed me too was there was a double under workout, and double unders for me are come or go. But when they put you on turf and you're jumping with a light rope, and I always carry more ropes than I have to. That's even my wife's biggest. She's like, why do you have so many ropes? I carry every single size I have. And if I would have done that then, I would have walked out probably with like one of Dave Newman's heavier ropes, knowing that I was going to be on turf, and I would have busted right through them. And as it was, I just couldn't adjust on the fly, and that cost me too. So those 2 workouts literally cost me the games.
Have you ever done jump rope on turf before? We were watching that, and that seemed like a really weird thing to throw at people.
Never. And what it entailed you doing is adjusting and jumping higher than you normally used to. So if you use a little bit of a longer rope, your adjustment was like almost impossible. You're going to be jumping with your arms way up here. I just couldn't make that adjustment. For some reason, it wasn't calculating in my head. And I started looking at the ground going, okay, there's a worn out spot where it looks like people have been jumping. And that's the only reason I got through the couple rounds that I did. But honestly, it's like not one part of it would have, anything else would have hurt me. It was the skier, it was the jump rope, and it was bar muscle ups. And I had all of those. And for a matter of fact, they got mad at me because it's like the first set of bar muscle ups, I think it was like, I don't know, 8 or 12 or whatever. And I like did unbroken. And the plan was to go 4, 4, 4. And I was like, I got this. It was good.
Now, Ron, I'm very curious, sitting here listening to you talk. I mean, you're experienced, you're a dedicated guy, you're a professional firefighter. You think you'd know better by now than to jump out hot, in this 5K run or to go unbroken on these muscle ups. What is it in you that, even though you know better, just kind of takes over and you do these things? What is that happens, and how do you try to control that in the future?
So that's the plan, is to find that out, exactly what's going on in my brain. No, I think what it is with the run, I went out and I was like, the plan was, and this is Chris's plan always. You talk to him, he's like, okay, I want you to go, you're going to burn through that first energy system, start to settle in and pull back a little. Well, there was a guy that was running with me. I was like, I got this guy. Well, by the second lap, and that guy told me, he goes, okay, he kept pushing me to go past him. At this point, I'm going, okay, if I can just stay with this guy, I'm going to be in good shape. And his thought was, this big lug is going to stay with me. I'm going to make him pay. And he did. He made me pay, because it was like, I was thinking, I could stay with him, I think. Then by the third lap, it was like, oh, no.
That wasn't the guy that eventually won, was it?
Yeah, he won.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
Not the event. He won the whole games?
Okay. No, he did not. He won that event. The guy that won the games is a guy from Holland, I think.
Okay.
And I had never seen him. Totally off the screen. Never didn't know. I don't think anybody ever heard of the guy. But he's a good athlete, and he held in there, and he surprised us in a lot of the workouts that we did. So, yeah. But I'm looking forward to working with him again like next year. Hopefully.
Now, obviously, again, the second place is still an incredible finish, and most people dream their life to get on a podium, and you've done it many, many times. But you mentioned your 3 coaches. You have a programming coach who kind of compiles everything. You have your gymnastics coach. You have your endurance coach. You don't have a weightlifting coach.
Yes.
You don't have someone taking over that area. I'm curious if it's because Jay assists with it, or if you feel like that's a strength of yours where you feel comfortable with it. But what is it that part is not specific?
I can answer that for him.
Oh, here it is.
It's because the weightlifting coaches at camp are so good that there's a little touch that he gets twice a year is all he needs. That's it.
But it was that they're so terrible that he doesn't want to reach out to you for any advice.
It's funny because I have, and I was forever. I think the hardest part is, as far as lifting goes with me, if I have somebody that's eyes on all the time, it's really a lot better for me. And it may seem strange because you may think that with gymnastics, but with gymnastics, I think if we have you have a coach that is with you all the time with lifting. And I mean, Chad, you can probably say the same thing. It's like to have eyes on every lift is really, really super important. It is a strength. It's something that I've been fortunate to not have to be that great at because I'm just stronger. Could I do a lot more if I did have a coach all the time? Absolutely. But Chad's turned me down a couple times. So
well,
I had to settle for Mike, and service was okay, but I mean, he kind of got frustrated with me.
Well, but and the thing about that too is that you talk about the team of coaches that you have, and to have a fourth one in whatever discipline, but especially weightlifting and trying to incorporate anything into what you your program that you already have as a whole, that is difficult. I mean, I've tried to work with other coaches in that way, and I don't necessarily think it's the best combination. I mean, I think I've somewhat made it work with a couple athletes and a couple other coaches, but it's really tough. And I think it's best for an athlete to have their one programmer for everything. And I like how you said that kind of Duke goes in and makes some tweaks, and then you just add Chris's stuff in where you can. But for weightlifting, I mean, I think you really need to have that that's one of the big base parts of your program, one of the big workloads of your program that you're going to be doing. So if anything, like you said, weightlifting wise, probably someone with their eyes on you every day. You just need to, you're going to have to move to Greece with Mike or down here to Texas, I guess. I don't know.
Hey, that trip to Greece looked amazing too, by the way.
It was absurd.
It looked friggin' amazing. And then I met up with, I think Bob.
Oh yeah, Emery. Yeah.
He started raving about it. I just looked at my wife. I was like, okay, so I'm like really jealous right now.
Yeah, Bob's been competing a lot in the master side now too. He brought his wife out to Greece, and then he just came to our restore camp that we did as well, and he's been kicking ass. He's been trying to, reach out to your level little by little, but he's been making some really good, impressive increases in his lifts, his gymnastics, everything's coming along. He's a great guy.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, he's going to be coming out this way. So our plan here.
Oh yeah, that's right. He's in Wellington. Yeah,
is we're building a gym out back, and so we're going to have like a pretty large structure, like 1,600 square feet, and nice. Make it available to people like Bob when they come into town.
Love it.
Hopefully be able to, help him through coaching or whatever while he's here. And then there's a few people around that really are interested in having a place to go to, but where I'm at, there's just not a lot of gyms close by. We're kind of out a little bit west, and there are some, but they're like in LA Fitness or just your standard gym. We're going to try and offer something a little bit more.
So do you have a home gym that you normally go to, or are you doing everything at your own place right now?
So right now I do. I kind of bounce around. There's a good friend of mine, Whitney, and she actually has a small gym that she opened up, and she was super nice. That's why I was running a little bit tight. I had to go do the last qualifier for Wadapalooza. And she's like, no, please come. I want you to be here. And I went and worked out at her place, and it was, honestly, it's like the perfect size. It's a personal training gym where she has, or her exact words, she goes, I needed somewhere to be able to do qualifiers. She's just turning 35. She wants to be able to break into the Masters and start doing some of those Masters events. And she's excited to be able to do that. And also she has a group of people that, corral of people that she trains personally. And she wanted something just small enough that she can do what she needs to do. So, we were just talking, I was just talking to my wife today, because, being in the Masters group for the time I've been there, I've seen a lot of really great changes. And it's been really cool to be able to be a part of that growth, but it's still like one of those things I just feel like we're kind of like, pushed to the side a lot. And you could probably say it. In your experience as a director of Power Monkey and doing everything you do, what are the numbers as far as like ages of people that go to Power Monkey?
Sure. So like the extremes are pretty wide ranging. This last camp, we had a 16-year-old and an 83-year-old. Mm-hmm. Those were our high and our low, which is pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. Say the average is probably around a 35-year-old, above average athlete, but it's wide ranging. Everybody who comes can, say that they feel like, we kind of gear more towards beginner and intermediate level athletes, but I'd say most of the people that come are coming for continuing education, coaches, owners, that kind of stuff, to be able to pass along the information that they learn, less for specifically athlete training and more about trying to get the knowledge to be able to work with other people.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that I've noticed most when I go. It's like the grouping of people is definitely diverse. You have like all different levels, but you have these people that are coming, and some of the cool successes that I've seen are like Bob, or like the people that are coming and they're just like this close to a muscle up, and they get there and there's enough excitement in coaching, like really specific, great coaching, that brings them over that edge. And next thing you know, they are now able to compete at a competition or a local, or maybe go to Wadapalooza now and do these other things they wanted to do and they couldn't because of the direction that they get there at camp. That, I mean, I'm telling you right now, I've PR'd on every single part of what there is to offer at camp, except for like double unders, because Dave Newman's not that good.
We won't tell him you said that.
He's just, don't tell him we're doing this podcast.
Do you have a specific memory of camp? I mean, you've been to like 10 plus camps. You know, there was a reason why we call you the mayor. You've been there as much as basically anyone. Is there a specific memory that you have at camp that sticks out that is not specifically like skill related, not like something you learned, but more of like an experience outside of the gym or a connection with someone that kind of stood out to you?
Yes. So, the campfire talks and stuff. And those are the things that touch me tremendously. There's a couple of them. There's one when Logan first came to camp. Mm-hmm. And here's a kid that he told the story at the campfire, and these are both pertaining to campfire. And to hear his story and to hear how brave he was as a person to carry on through that. And then you sit and go, every time you have like something bad go wrong, we can like pretend like the world's falling apart. But here's a kid lost his arm. Mm-hmm. This year at the games, Dave, I watched him do dumbbell snatch, rope climb. And I'm like going, crap. He came in, I go, bro, that was amazing. I go, how heavy was that dumbbell? He's like, 100 pounds. That was a 100-pound dumbbell. He's doing dumbbell snatches. I'm like, are you kidding me? And he goes, I've never done one with 100 pound. He goes, but I did them all. And I go, yeah, you're flying through them. So that was one of them, because I watched his growth and to see how he's grown and gone through it.
The dude is truly superhuman.
Yeah,
his arm is superhuman. First of all, that arm, I mean, it's incredible. But he himself is a superhero, no doubt about it.
Yeah, we had him on the podcast not that long ago, and we talked about that 225 clean and jerk that he did. I mean, I still am just amazed that he could do that. Putting that overhead with one arm,
unbelievable.
If you haven't seen that video, go back and watch it. Logan Aldridge is doing 225 with one arm. It's just ridiculous.
Amazing. And so that, and then there was another young man that was there who had cystic fibrosis. I don't know if you remember. And he spoke it at the campfire. And afterwards, I went up to him. I'm going to start getting emotional in a second, because it was like, I was like, this is awesome. You're doing this. This is amazing. And he goes, this is something, it was on my bucket list to be here. And he goes, I just don't know if I'll be able to do anything like this tomorrow. And you see that and you hear that from him, and you're going, there's something special that happens at camp. And we all know this because we've been there so many times. But when you're there and you see that kind of desire to be there amongst the people that are there, Dave, you've created something super special. You, Chad, and Mike, and your wife, it's just beyond just learn. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, his name, Ron, I believe you're talking about Adam.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he was a great one, and always a pleasure to go down there to the campfire and listen to those stories. And you, Ron, were my lead off for many years, and you set the tone for everybody, and we always had a good time having you down there. So certainly we're going to get you back down there once you return as well.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Well, we got to give a quick shout out to you, Chad. Chad has taken the campfire stories and made that his baby. He has turned it into such an incredible part of what camp is, to tell the stories of not only the coaches and the staff, which I think campers enjoy hearing kind of from the people that they're getting taught from. But we've started to bring in more and more of the stories of the participants too, who maybe some are return campers who wanted to tell their stories. And one of the things I think you mentioned last camp, Chad, that really stuck with me was that everyone has a story that's worth telling.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's such an important thing for us to all to understand, that it doesn't need to be an Olympian or a games champion telling a story. It's everyone has a story that's worth telling that you have to, look for. And we found so many incredible stories. And this time too, we just got back from camp a couple of weeks ago, and we had couple former campers, staff members that told stories that really hit home for us. And I just want to give a shout out to you, Chad, for making the campfire story such an important part of what camp is.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said at the last night there, it's I mean, of course, I'm there to teach and coach, but I think it's become my purpose in being there is more for the campfire than anything. And Ron, I mean, it was incredible before. It's always been amazing, but you'd be a little bit surprised of what it's turned into as well. I mean, now we have a camper now and then that will come up to me or one of the other coaches and just feel led to say something. So they've got that opportunity and that invitation to speak up, and it's really been something that we've seen as an opportunity for them to heal a little further or to begin to heal in the first place. There's numerous examples of campers that have done that. So I'm glad you brought that up, Ron, and you got to come back to see kind of what it's turned into and be a part of it for sure.
Yeah, I do. I miss you guys. Like I said, my wife Jess is so excited to be a part of coming up there too. I you know, it's incredible. Like I can't tell you the people that you run into too that are like previous camp members. Those are like people that as soon as you see them, it's like all walls are broken down, and you're like, oh my gosh, and they're hugging, and it's just such I mean, the group again, what you've created is beyond. And I think I kind of expressed that. I remember in the beginning, I was like really confused. I was like, why are there not more people here? Mm-hmm. Why are there not more people that know about this? Because right away, it was one of those things that I saw and I believed in so. Oh, sorry. Hey, that's enough.
Well, it sounds like the pup believes as well.
Yeah.
That's enough. It's not. There's not even somebody. It's somebody in the other neighborhood. So, but yeah. Let me let him out 1 second. I'm sorry.
Don't worry.
Come on.
Just give him a mic as well.
Yeah.
Or she.
I'm kicking him out of the room. It's funny because we have a worker here, and the poor guy's gonna be scared to death. But he's this guy's the biggest softie. He's such a good pup. But you know, I like I said, I've believed in it from day one. I believe what you guys are doing is like, it was a space that was missing for so long in our CrossFit community. And you guys have provided something that it goes beyond what anything, without sounding derogatory, CrossFit was offering or has ever offered. And because it filled all the voids. And because it was a week long, it made so much more sense. You know, you can't get to know people in a weekend. You get to know people over a period of time, and that's what occurs with what you guys do. And love you guys.
Well, thank you, Ron. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I actually ran into a individual from Camp 2 a few days ago, and he was just mentioning how there's still a handful of people from that camp that he made friends with that he talks to on a regular basis, and that's the kind of thing we run into all the time, you know. And I'm sure, Ron, for you going to the games and everything else, I mean, there's probably at least 10, 20 or more people that you run into that you've seen and know from camp.
And athletes too. So that's therein lies part of the problem though too, because you get these guys that are athletes that are going that have now become better athletes because of what you guys are doing. So I like there's a little bit of a complaint there too, but it's like, you know, anybody. I kind of laugh because even my coaches are like, okay, you need to stop. You need to stop. No more telling anybody that we're your coach, because what happens is they call us and they want us to be their coach and we can't.
Yeah.
So
good problem.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk a little bit more about your strengths and weaknesses now. You talked a little bit about, you know, how Chris and how Duke have helped. I want to talk about your gymnastics because, I mean, I think you're listed at 6'3", 225. Is that accurate?
I'm probably teetering on 230 right about now.
Okay. But you look like 6'8". Like if anyone ever, like if someone told me you were 6'3", I was like, no way. Like you are a massive human being. Like you look like you're cut out of marble. You look like you're straight out of like a superhero comic.
Superhero, yeah.
Yeah, you're a walking superhero. And you don't really have the build of a gymnast. Someone that would be good at gymnastics movements. And I've always been amazed at how well you move on all gymnastics movements. You mentioned your bar muscles being able to do unbroken. You're always at the handstand station with me. After having done the handstand station with me so many times, I would continuously bring you up as the demo because your handstand push-ups, your handstand form has gotten so good. It's just an anomaly. And I'm curious if it's because of the work that you've done with Duke or what, or if you just feel like gymnastics movements come naturally, but you don't really have the body type for it. And I'm curious how it happened.
I think somewhere along the line I may have shared. So my brother was a gymnast. And
really?
What happened, so he was a collegiate gymnast.
Wow.
And what would happen is I was just young enough that when I would get in trouble, I was doing L sits. When I would get in trouble. He'd be like, "Why don't you sit there? You're doing L. Hold it till I get back." I'd be like,
I love this guy. I love this guy.
So, and he always had us outside doing handstands and handstand walks as kids. But we, again, you stop from doing a lot of that stuff. So then you have to readjust. But I always grew up doing some kind of sport. My dad was a track coach and very athletic. So I was fortunate. A lot of stuff, again, I tend to be somebody who kind of throws caution in the wind a lot of times. I'm like, yeah, I can do that, and I'll try it. But being the fact that I am a bigger guy, though, too, I began to realize early on I need to do better with this. And I realized gymnastics is one of those things. Having the longer levers that I do can be a plus and a big minus, depending on what I'm giving. And I've been fortunate because Duke recognized early on from some of the earlier games, he's like, "Hey, bro, you got to be ready." So he has me work out on kind of the same thing Dave Newman does, where it's like he'll have you use a short rope or a long rope to be able to adjust on the fly.
Right.
Duke does that with bars. So he goes, "I don't care. I want you to work on a short bar today. Today we're going to do short bar pull-ups, and whether you have to do singles or whether it has to do whatever." So he has me work a lot on like short rings, long rings. But going into competition, like obviously for the qualifiers and stuff, the first comment that he made, I was going to do the muscle up workout somewhere else. And he goes, no. He goes, you need to do that at a gym you're comfortable. So he knows me well enough to know what I can do, what I can't do, or what we need to work on. But I think a lot of what I learned at camp, and this is truth. This is not me selling camp. A lot of what I learned at camp is something that stays in your mind. And even though I have an amazing gymnastics coach with me all the time, he knows that those things are set into play already. So he builds on top of that, regardless of what the circumstance or what's happening, or even the plan that he thinks we're going to follow at the games. I know what I'm capable of because of what I've learned from camp, from Duke, and the same thing goes with running. I mean, honestly, yeah, I'm a bigger guy, but a bigger guy is not always the best runner in the world. Chris has me pretty well focused in on things to where I should be able to perform at a certain level. I was super disappointed, and I'm telling you, at the games after that, I was so upset.
No, it's first event too.
I was more upset and it took my wife and Duke and Jay and Chris to smack me around. And most of it was like my wife going, this, you've been here before, shake yourself out of this thing and keep going. So, a lot of the weaknesses that I do have, I know what they are, and I need to learn to follow. And that falls along with kind of what you were saying, Chad, about, the years that things had gone the best at the games, I had a game plan and I followed it.
Yeah.
And the years that I can look at and go, okay, I didn't follow it because of something along the line that was my fault. And there's no one to blame, zero, anybody to blame but myself. In any one of those times that I didn't do as well as coming out of the games this year, that was the first thing I told my wife. I was like, those two things are my screw up.
You definitely got to get back to camp and introduce a new coach. We have the mental training seminar. Dawn Fletcher from Driven Mind Training. That's the missing link. We got to get you hooked up with Dawn. She'll be able to fix that one little wrinkle in your training.
Yeah, she'll be able to set you straight for sure.
Yeah. along those same lines, I'm curious if there's one specific skill or achievement that you were able to attain over the last, 10 years of basically being a games athlete that you didn't think initially was attainable. Like, is there something that you were able to, whether it's a 5K time or whether it's a certain number of unbroken muscle ups, is there something you were like, I'm never going to be able to do that, and you were able to surprise yourself after the time that you put in working with the coaches?
Maybe an iron cross.
Iron cross, long lever.
I'm getting there. Not quite there yet. I'd have to have like a piece of iron across my arms.
Yeah. There you go.
But no, it's funny because I've always like gone into something going, I'm gonna try it until I get it, and that can be to a detriment as well. And then because I've seen myself do that with like lifting, there's certain things that I'll do, and Chad, there's a certain amount of times you try. After that, you let it go.
Right.
But I literally would have a habit of going, okay, I'm gonna rest 3 minutes. I'm gonna go back and do it again. I'm gonna do it again. And finally, people around me at the gym's like, oh, Ron, you need to stop. But yeah. I tend to be like, kind of like, hard-headed when it comes to that stuff. And if there's something that I can't do, I'll continue to try until I do. I've been fortunate too, I guess, because as I've gotten older, those things kind of go to the wayside, which is sad. I've gotten a little bit upset at times because there's certain things they had us do that are like, one of them was like the wall walks. This year at Wallapalooza, they had us do was wall walks, but Duke is like, bro, those are harder. Mm-hmm. Doing handstand walks is so much easier than doing wall walks. And he's absolutely right. Mm-hmm. So some of the things that they prescribe as opposed to the things that we should be able to do, that they're saying, no, we don't want to do that. I wish they would continue those, because that's the challenge. The challenge in my experience with the CrossFit has been, okay, what's the next thing? And it continues for the younger guys, but the masters, they continue to like water things down because, oh, well, you're an anomaly. Not everybody can do that, but everybody should be able to, because if it's the games and we're the top 20 people in the world, we should be able to do things that most other masters athletes can't do. We can't water it down and go, oh, it has to be so everybody can do it. No, that's not the goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'm curious because, we brought up Bob, who is a big part of Power Monk. He's been to camp 4 or 5 times and been to a retreat and been to Restore, and just a big part of what we do. And I think he fits the mold for a lot of people who are breaking into the masters world. And it's something that you've been at the top of for so long. I'm curious if there's any advice you would have to other masters athletes out there to say, this is something that I learned later on in my competitive career that I wish I would have known earlier as a master athlete, not specifically. Is there something that you would pass along to those that are listening that are kind of trying to follow in your footsteps?
That's mobility. Honestly, it's like working on your mobility. That's like too many times, and I'm telling you, too many athletes. And I was just with somebody again up in PA, and I was like, man, that's like mobility. They're getting hurt doing things they can do because they're strong enough and they're hard-headed enough to go ahead and try it, but they're not ready to do it yet. Mm-hmm. And that's what I continually tell people is like, you need to work on your mobility. The guy that was doing the bar muscle ups, he could do them. They were ugly. Yeah. Is there an injury right on the edge? Yeah. You shouldn't be doing them until you can do this and do it appropriate. Yeah. So I think taking the time to learn things properly, working on your mobility, and then working continually on your flexibility and everything from that point will make you a better athlete. The guy that I was speaking of, big guy from FX, we took a picture and we're both the same size, and his coach is like, I don't think I've ever seen somebody the same size as this guy. He stopped now because his knees are shot. Mm. Now, he was an athlete in college, he was an athlete later on, but again, being a big guy and trying to do the things that we try to do can sometimes be very detrimental. Knee issues and those type of things, but those are all things also, nutrition, proper mobility is going to take a lot of strain off of those cartilage and bone areas that are going to be pulled and tweaked if you're not mobile and if you're not working on flexibility. So, and I'm suffering through some of that, as we speak. So it's like, there's always things that we need to continue to look at, but I think mobility, nutrition, and rest.
I love that. Chad, how's that fall in with your program of barbell mobility? That's right up your alley.
Yeah, absolutely. There it is, barbell mobility. It absolutely is. I think, we said in the very beginning when we created that program that our main audience, just not without us even trying for it to be, is masters, and that's anywhere from 35 and above, masters, CrossFit athletes and masters weightlifting athletes, of course. But I want to ask you, Ron, and especially being that I have barbell mobility available and mobility is my kind of main thing that I do, what are some realistic expectations for someone your age, someone that's a new master, 35, or someone that's even a little bit older, to be able to achieve either a little bit of extra mobility, more mobility, or maybe for some athletes, from your perspective, is it simply they're doing mobility for maintenance? Because I had an experience maybe a couple of years ago now where I was working this 2 or 3 day event with a couple weightlifting coaches, and one of those weightlifting coaches was pretty heated with me when I talked about wanting to add in a mobility segment to teach people about it, to assess their mobility, to give them some protocols, because we're working with a group of masters athletes, and he was like, these are masters athletes, they're not going to gain any mobility, we just need to teach them weightlifting, and we need to teach them how they can move the best that they can without worrying about their mobility. That's completely opposite to what I think, completely opposite to what I've seen happen with older athletes. So from your perspective and your experience, what are some realistic expectations that you can give to some of the listeners out there that know they need to work on mobility, but might be a little bit hesitant or thinking that it's not possible for them to make that kind of change?
And so the change is not even something that should be, it's a necessity, because without the mobility, they're more prone to injury. And we know as we get older, there are certain things in our body that begin to tighten up, and they're not as elastic as they used to be, right? So nutrition, that's where like taking less fish oils and those type of things will help with the elasticity in those areas, but the mobility will continue to help increase the distance that person can carry the weight down. And, again, so I look at a lot of different things. And just the other day, I was passing by somebody. I watched this lady who was sitting almost on her haunches. And she was an older lady, but she was out working in the yard. And we're just up in Philly. And I was like admiring the fact that, gosh, this lady's probably like 70, and she's still like squatting all the way to the ground. Mm-hmm. So is it that we're not capable of it, or we just don't do it?
Right.
Now, somebody like that too, she's going to be able to come up out of the bottom of that thing very comfortable. Whereas any one of us that haven't done it in a long time, you're going to come out of the bottom of that, and you're going to have all kinds of like squeaks and grinds and everything coming out of the bottom of it. So the more comfortable, and I liken it to what you guys teach at camp. The more comfortable you become in the bottom part of that squat, the more comfortable you're going to be in the coming out of that squat. Every part of that has to do with mobility. Mm-hmm. I don't know who the other guy was, but I can honestly tell you, I wouldn't want to be coached by him, because that type of coaching is going to make somebody hurt. It's going to make somebody do things, and they're going to be stretching things that shouldn't be stretched just because he thinks they'll be able to get down to that position. Well, I'd rather, like what you're coaching, teach them to get down to that position comfortably. And now when they're coming up out of the bottom of it, they're going to be even more comfortable, and their muscles are going to be prepared for that. I just think mobility is, and it's something that I'm saying, and I don't do enough. And because I don't, I have issues that I have. And just recently I was talking to somebody that I had talked to and introduced him to a stem cell guy who I had had work done by. And I was like, hey, how are your knees doing? He goes, bro, I started doing ankle mobility and my knees aren't hurting anymore.
Right.
So, we start working on the flexibility in the lower ends of our squat, and next thing you know, our position is better and everything becomes better on the way back up. So mm-hmm. Chad, I think what you're doing is like, you have to do that. You have to I would almost approach that for somebody weightlifting first, and then we'll start working on their strength, because the strength. The strength's going to come, but if you work on the mobility first, now you know that their body's going to be able to handle the load at the lower end of it, and that's going to give them a huge plus.
Absolutely. Mobility first, and that leads to better position. And then, like you said, we can start trying to get a little bit stronger. But Ron, I've been meaning to reach out to you for a while anyway. We need to get you on barbell mobility program, man. If your coaches are okay with it, I mean, it's only 10 minutes a day, little 10-minute barbell mobility warm up that you can easily throw into your program. So I'll be getting in touch with you.
Perfect. That'd be good. I'm in.
And barbell mobility can be your weightlifting coach. How about that?
All right. I'm in. I'm in.
Chad, where can people find it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. Barbellmobility.com if you want to learn more about it. But as mentioned, it's they're 10-minute warm-ups provided on a daily basis, and basically just rotates between your squat bottom position on one day. Next day will be mobility for your deadlift or your start position. Next day will be mobility for your overhead, and then, front rack, and then overhead, and it just alternates through like that every day as you go through the weeks, and there's progressions involved, and just kind of each week and each block builds on top of the next one. So yeah, if you want to learn more about it, barbellmobility.com. If you want to sign up, you can actually use the coupon code monkey15 through Power Monkey, and you guys can get 15% off your first 3 months. So hopefully you'll check it out.
Love it. Well, Ron, we're getting close to the end here, but before we get you off, would you mind answering a couple of quick rapid fire questions?
Yes, absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, question number one. I don't know what the answer is going to be to this one. What sport or discipline do you prefer, weightlifting or gymnastics?
Ooh, I actually prefer gymnastics.
Oh, that was a little quicker.
Believe it or not, the only reason being is because where I'm at strength-wise right now, I mean, I'm stronger. One of the stronger ends of my age group. Gymnastics is always the challenge. It really is. It's one of those things that you can always like improve a little bit more to like cut down things. So I'm sorry, Chad. I love you.
No, I understand. I mean,
barbellmobility.com.
There you go. That's right. I wish you would have entertained me a little bit more and struggled with it a little bit longer, but I understand where you're coming from. If it's your personality and your character to be drawn to something that's harder for you. You want to overcome it. So I get it.
Absolutely.
I love it. Well, question number two, any guests that you think would be great for us to have on the podcast? Anybody that comes to mind?
Absolutely. Well, I really believe that some of the guests, or some of the athletes that have gone through this the drug issues would be a good thing to do.
Okay.
Just because I think there's a lot of them that would have things to say that are not being heard. There's only certain things that people are allowing out there. And one of them would be Sean Ramirez, because he's getting ready to come out of that, and he's expressed interest in getting back into that. Another one would be Steph. Steph from Canada, that she just recently went through that whole thing at the games. So there are people that I think are like innocent in what happened. And then it'd be interesting to hear from even like some of the younger ones, like the Ricky Garrard and Justin Kotler would be another good coach to have too, because he had some athletes with extreme success, but had things happen after that. So
those are great suggestions.
Yeah.
Like it.
I can make the connections if you want. Those are all people that are my friends and love them to death. But also like Matt Bickle. He's somebody that is just like, I follow him all the time, and I want to live Matt's life. I mean, honestly, guy's traveling everywhere all the time, working out tremendously and doing that. And then, All right. I can think of a few more. Just Those
are perfect.
Ron's got too many friends. We'll be here all day listening to his recommendations, I think. Another question for you, Ron. Any books you've come across here recently that you'd recommend to the listeners?
Yes. So I just started reading, and I'm not going to be able to remember it because you said it, but it's a book of short stories by the guy that did Dirty Jobs. What's his name?
Oh, yeah. He's great. I love that guy.
Yeah. he has a book of just short stories, and there are like incredible stories that he tells about certain people. Mike Rowe, and his book is amazing. So my wife kind of turned to me the other night. She's like, we need to start turning the TV off at night and reading before bed, because it's like just not good for you to do. And we you fall into a bad habit of doing it because it's so easy to like, chill out and do that. So we started reading books, and I started reading it, and it's really good. It's very good, easy read, short stories. You can probably bust through like 10 of them before you go to bed. And they're really amazing stories about some people that have really made a difference in the world, and he has some pretty good insight on it.
Is it The Way I Heard It? Is that the name? Okay, perfect.
Nice. Well, we have not had that recommendation before, but I like it for sure. All right, Ron. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been way too long since we've seen you, since we've talked to you. Please don't be a stranger. Make it back to camp as soon as you can. Do you have any parting words for the listeners?
Number one, and it's not a sales thing for Power Monkey, but I love everything that you guys do. I love what you guys are doing at camp. Aside from making people better athletes, you're making people like better people, and bringing people together in community that needs that in such a big way, because there's so many places that can be separate, and we bring people together regardless of where they're coming from. So it's kind of a neat thing. And number two, just stay safe, stay mobile, and stay healthy. Love you guys tremendously.
Thank you, Ron. We miss you. We love you too.
Love you as well. And to our listeners, as always, we very much appreciate you guys listening in. Be sure to head over to powermonkeyfitness.com for services and upcoming events. Also, check out our Instagram pages for regular teaching and technical content at Power Monkey Fitness, at Dave Durante, and at Ollie Chad. And on behalf of Power Monkey Fitness, we're your host. I'm Chad Vaughn with Dave Durante. And until next time, guys, thank you all for listening.